Dude, I have a great idea for a show I want to pitch to you. During the 4th century BC, Aristotle defined rhetoric as discovering all available means of persuasion on a topic. And thus, for Aristotle, hearing multiple arguments, multiple points of view was the key to truly understanding an issue.
Interesting. I was actually going to pitch you a debate show. You know, where we tackle current, hot-button, controversial issues in the world of magic. We can have timers and buzzers, and people love a good argument.
But remember, there's no right or wrong here. We are entering into a forum of discussion where we have the shared goals of discovering and understanding the truth of a complex issue.
Yeah, sure, but it's gotta be fast. I mean, you can't hold people's attention these days. It's gotta be like 90 seconds, you make your case, 45-second rebuttal, boom, bam, on to the next topic.
No name calling, no personal attacks. After all, we are both academics and scholars.
And at the end, the audience votes on a winner and then determines the topic for the next show. Oh man, the ratings are gonna be huge!
In response, I just want to stress that this is an intellectual exercise.
Well, in response, let me just say, if it's not entertaining, no one's gonna watch it.
In response, let me remind you.
Well, in response, let me tell you.
In response.
In response.
In response. Hello and welcome to In Response, the Magic the Gathering debate show where Josh, Lee Kwai, and myself debate and discuss the hot topic issues you suggest for the world of Magic the Gathering. Before we begin today's episode, let's see who won last week's. Based on audience voting on the subject of whether or not there should be new cards printed for Commander sets, it seems that the audience overwhelmingly agreed with Josh. But as for whether or not Magic the Gathering should be considered an e-sport, those numbers turned overwhelmingly in my favor, as they did for the issue of the reserve list and whether or not it should be abolished. Which means that I won last week's debate 2 out of 3. Who will win this week's debate? You decide by voting via the link in this video's description. We had well over 40,000 views on our video from last week and well over 1,000 votes registered, inadvertently proving why democratic voting is not always as successful as we would like it to be. Beginning this week, we will be debating the topic of Masters sets. Are they a success? Products such as Eternal Masters and Modern Masters seek to reprint key cards for those formats in order to provide access to many Magic the Gathering players. But have these sets failed, or are they the shining light of the future? Josh, you have 90 seconds. Begin.
I think it's hard to argue that Master sets have not been a success. I graded them under 3 categories. One is, were they available to the public? Now, the first Modern Masters had a problem with this back in 2013. They underprinted it. It's a little bit understandable because Wizards was being cautious. It was their first foray doing anything like this since Chronicles. They were being a little bit overcautious. And so for Modern Masters 2015 and Eternal Masters, even right now, you can go online and you can find booster boxes of both of those products for less than MSRP. In fact, our sponsor, Card Kingdom, has them for like $190, which is way less than the $250 price point that they were originally advertised at. So they've definitely been made available to the public. The second is, do the Master sets lower the prices of cards? And again, I think they do. Wedge from the Mana Source recently had a video about this. I'm going to quote him a little bit. Caracas from Eternal Masters is in like 30% of all Legacy decks. It dropped by 66%, the price of it. Mana Crypt in like 60% of all Vintage decks, and in a lot of Commander decks, dropped about the same amount. Sensei's Divining Top is worth about half what it was before Eternal Masters came out. Cabal Therapy, $12 card. Now you can get a playset for $12. Definitely you can point to things like Tarmogoyf, which haven't hit the ground, but they're definitely worth less than they were before. The prices on these things have come down. I think the Master sets are successful in that regard. Lastly, are they fun draft in limited environments? Hell yeah. These things are some of the best draft sets that we've had in recent years. Modern Masters is the first one. Eternal Masters, great top tier draft sets. Modern Masters 2015.
I'm sorry, Josh, that's time.
Okay, Prof, you have 90 seconds to state your case. Go ahead.
It's interesting that you would mention Modern Masters and Eternal Masters as great draft sets, because I think that's one of the key points to demonstrate how these have failed. They are designed with draft in mind, not with reprints in mind. In fact, the vast majority of cards from within Modern Masters 1, 2, and Eternal Masters, while legal in Modern or legal in Legacy, are not actually played in Modern, or not actually played in Legacy. The vast majority of these included cards are ones that were included for making a great draft environment, and I'm so glad that we were able to make a great draft environment, but what we want from master sets are reprints. Those examples that you gave of individual cards lowering in price, wouldn't it be great if we actually got more than half a dozen needed reprints out of an entire master set? For all the cards you named, 3 master sets and the Zendikar fetchlands have never been reprinted. Gitaxian Probe, played in both Modern and Legacy and a $4 common, never been reprinted. Flusterstorm for Legacy, Show and Tell for Legacy was never in any of the master sets. Good thing it hit Conspiracy, and on and on. The prices on those individual cards may have fallen, but overall, Modern and Legacy are prohibitively expensive, and with 3 master sets...
Time's up.
All right, Josh, you may offer your rebuttal. 45 seconds is on the clock.
Prof, before we start, can I ask you one question?
Yes?
Do you think that the value of cards is an important component of the game, or do you think that cards just didn't have any value at all?
Cards need to have value. It's a collectible card game.
Okay.
Is this part of the debate?
I'm going to start my 45 seconds now. I just wanted to clarify one point.
Okay.
First of all, I do think draft is really important, and limited is really important to a lot of people like me that don't play Modern, don't play Standard, and would have no reason to really purchase the set if it's only for reprints. We could just order the singles online and be done with it. The set needs draft and limited to be healthy. I think Wizards has done a lot of market research. We can trust that they have to see what's going to sell the set more. The second is the same thing with the reserve list, which is that card value is important. You admitted it yourself. There's a reason we sleeve our cards and we protect their value. And massively destabilizing prices is not really a great way to go. They've been cautious, and I hope that they will ramp it up. I hope that they'll go in your direction, but I think they do need to continue to be cautious, because the people we're going to hurt if we massively destabilize prices are going to be places like your local gaming stores who are holding a ton of singles that they just bought.
Time is up.
Okay, Prof. Time for your 45-second response.
I think what's going to hurt local game stores most of all is if people can't play the game of Magic the Gathering. And as it currently stands, the pricing in Modern, in Legacy, is so prohibitively high that only people who already have access to those cards or are financially capable of purchasing them are able to buy into those formats. We don't need cards to be at zero value in order to have them accessible to everyone, but we need it so that individual cards in 75 card constructed decks, including sideboard, are not $40 each, $50 each, and those are prices in Modern. Reprints are critical in order for these formats to survive.
Okay, that's all we have time for on that topic. It's time to move on to the next item on our agenda. It is the unsets. There's been Unhinged, there's been Unglued. Mark Rosewater has said he wants to do whatever, but the community is divided on whether or not they want this to happen. Prof, it's time for you to make your case. Do you think there should be another unset?
Did you know that from start to finish, in order to make an entire set for Magic the Gathering, it takes approximately 2 years? And out of R&D, if we're just talking about the number of people that they have to work on making new cards, writing rules, that sort of element, not storyline and flavor and the many other aspects that go into it, but just literally to produce the cards and the rules on them, we're talking about 15 to 25 people that are available for that task. Unsets were fun. They were funny, but they are not a real part of Magic the Gathering. They were a joke, a light bit of humor, and we, as it stands, have other, more important things that need to get produced, like real sets of Magic the Gathering that we can play. Wizards of the Coast doesn't have the resources or the time to devote to it. And if they do devote it to a third unset, that means they're taking it away from something else, like a block set, like a potential summer set like Conspiracy, or a Masters set perhaps. And so we need to say that yes, unsets were special, yes, unsets were fun, but no, we can't continue regularly to devote our resources to them. The only reason anybody wants to buy them anyhow is just to get a full art land. Well, that's not a sufficient reason for devoting those resources to a third unset. But Josh Lee Kwai, you beg to differ. Can you tell me why a third unset is not just a maybe, but a must?
I think that the unsets are super fun. I think it's kind of funny that a lot of people, the same people I think that complain about like the fact that it's just a game and who cares about the value of cards, or like I don't want an unset because I don't think that the cards are valuable enough. It can be just be fun because it's a self-contained thing. I also think Conspiracy was super fun and is very similar, right? Because yes, there are some cards that are playable, but a lot are not legal in the other formats or just not good in the other formats. It's not like we can't just have something that's fun just for the sake of it. It is still a game, and a lot of us, myself included, didn't really get to enjoy the first two unsets, and we'd love a chance to do it. There's been a lot of new players brought in since then. But the really big major point that I think is in favor of the unset is simple. Mark Rosewater wants to do it. Mark Rosewater, this guy has given so much to the game. He's really one of the reasons for the success of the game. He's an extremely passionate and creative guy, and he's got passion to do another unset. I think we should give him his head on this one. I think if he wants to do it, we owe it to him as a community. I mean, I want to live in the world where artists can follow their passion projects. And those projects in the real world, in all kinds of things, have very often brought us some of our greatest things. I mean, think of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There would have never been the TV show because the movie failed unless Joss Whedon was like, you know what? I want to do Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I have a passion to do it. I trust Mark Rosewater. I think that he can make something awesome. I think he can learn from the mistakes made in the past because I agree, they weren't perfect, but they were like super fun. A lot of people enjoyed them, and a lot of us want to try them out.
Time is up.
Okay, Prof, time for your 45-second rebuttal. Go ahead.
Josh, I don't owe Mark Rosewater anything. Lovely man, but just because he wants to do it doesn't make it right. Richard Garfield, who created Magic, says his favorite card is Shahrazad. So should we make that legal in Commander just because Richard Garfield is such a great guy and made Magic? Let's be real. Uncards can't be played anywhere except in silly kitchen table Magic games that are also going to, even for casual Magic, from the very start, be just for a couple of chuckles. So we're making an entire set of Magic cards that cannot, under any circumstances, ever be played anywhere again. You said yourself you never had a chance to play with any of the unsets. Well, what's stopping you? Oh wait, because the cards are illegal everywhere. The final word, Josh, is yours. Go ahead, 45 seconds for your closing rebuttal.
It's a really interesting position for a creative guy to take, in that an artist should not be able to follow their passion. And you know what? Creativity is crazy. It leads you in interesting directions, and you learn things that you use in other places that you never would have thought. Who knows what another unset being designed by somebody who's passionate about it, like Mark Rosewater, will teach him that he can use in other sets in the future of Magic. Who even knows? And let me just say that they don't have to make the same mistakes that they made last time. They could have some black bordered cards mixed in with the silver bordered cards. Why not? There's no rules. It's an unset. They can do what they want. If they want to add a little bit of value, spice it up, make it so there are some legacy cards available in there, they could do it. There's no reason they couldn't. So I think that if they learn from the mistakes that they made in the past, the unset could be great.
Well, then maybe Mark Rosewater should do a Kickstarter for that third unset if he wants it so bad. And
hey, maybe you should just do every video that everybody on your page wants you to do.
No, that would be absurd.
Oh, so you get to make creative decisions? You get to follow your passion? You get to say, I want to make this video, I'm going to make it?
So your argument is that since I don't do every idea that gets thrown at me, that we should do every idea that's getting thrown at
my
Mark
argument
Rosewater?
is that when you have a passion to do a video, you do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's my idea. Return to Homeland's Baron Singer's Revenge. Why not? Okay, so Moving on to our final topic of the video, we are discussing whether or not Wizards of the Coast should have complete control over the Commander format. Commander is a format that was created and invented by the players, and it has become one of the most popular and profitable formats for Magic the Gathering. With new Commander products coming out every year and the format growing rapidly, should Wizards of the Coast essentially take control of Commander from the player council that has been in charge of it since its inception? Josh, the opening argument is yours. 90 seconds. Begin.
First of all, I want to say that this is not a statement against Sheldon Menery, Toby Elliott, a lot of the people on the rules committee. I think for the most part, they've done a very good job. I haven't agreed with everything they've done, but I think the format, they've shepherded it fairly well. I just think the problem is Commander has grown too big for what they are, which is a small handful of people in a very insulated environment making decisions that affect hundreds of thousands of people, because there's a lot of people that play this format. And the problem is that they don't have any data. Sheldon has said that they don't make decisions based on any data because they don't have data. And so the question is, what are they making decisions based on? That's very scary to me. Wizards is a huge multi-million-dollar company. They have a lot of data on what sells, what people are playing. They see a lot more people and Magic being played than Sheldon Menery and 5 people do. I know there are some Wizards people on the committee. The thing about Wizards being in control of Commander that really I think was important is that it opens up a little bit of a democratic process. Now that sounds funny, I know, because they're an evil corporation, Prof, but I have a way to affect Wizards of the Coast, and so do you, and so do all the listeners that play Commander. It's called our wallet. We have consumer pressure that can be applied to Wizards of the Coast, and we know they respond to it. Just recently, they changed the standard rotation from 18 months back to 24 months. Why? Because of consumer pressure. And I want to have that ability to affect Commander as a consumer, which I don't have now. Right now, Sheldon and those guys, they don't have to respond to it because they're not making any money off of it or anything, and so they don't have to listen to us when we have complaints or problems. All right, Prof, I've made my case. Now it's time for you to tell us why the Rules Committee should just stay the way it is.
You're right. They don't have to bow to the complaints of the masses and other ad populum arguments. They simply have to do what's best for the game of Commander, a game they understand. Wizards of the Coast had to be dragged, kicking and screaming, into the position of making Commander product and promoting and supporting this format. There are quotes from Mark Rosewater from years back where he says he doesn't even understand why people enjoy Commander. Well, then the sales started hitting the roof, and suddenly it made a lot of sense. But look at the type of cards that Wizards creates for Commander, where they're trying to engineer group fun. Most of these cards are wildly unsuccessful and unpopular from the player base, because Wizards still doesn't quite get this format. You say the committee needs data? Then let Wizards give them data for their consideration. But that's no reason to wrest control. Wizards is likely to muddle the mixture, as they've already started to do, creating planeswalkers that can be used as commanders, creating commanders who have abilities that go off while in the command zone. Now we've got 2 commanders. What is this format going to look like under Wizards' rule? It will be unrecognizable, because every crackpot idea that gets shouted out and that will sell boxes is suddenly going to be implemented by people who don't even play real Commander, such as the people of the Rules Committee do. But you're the Commander expert among us here, Josh, so if you feel that the very people who have cultivated this format into one of your most favorite should be denied all of the access to what they have worked on over these years, what remaining reasons do you have? 45 seconds, go.
Listen, I think Wizards could hire Sheldon and Toby to run it from inside. I just want Wizards to be in charge of it because, again, there's incentives. The incentives are set up correctly to listen to the consumer. I also think you just spread a whole bunch of misinformation. Mark Rosewater is not in charge of the Commander product. There's a huge community within Wizards that plays Commander and meets regularly. Yes, Mark's not one of them, but a lot of other very high profile R&D people are involved in it. We just had Trick Jarrett on our show talking about it. There's a healthy Commander atmosphere inside Wizards of the Coast. They love that format. They understand the format. And we remember from last episode that in general, people like the new cards. All those cards you listed, the partner commanders and everything else, people like those things. They like what Wizards is doing. They don't dislike them. It's just you, Prof, that doesn't like them. And I want more of that stuff, and I think that more of that stuff can happen if Wizards is in charge of the format and they know what they're doing.
Time. You're up. You're done. Time is over. Finito.
All right, Prof, you've got the last word on our last topic of the day. I'm anxious to hear your 45-second response.
Trick Jarrett plays Commander is what you've got. Trick Jarrett doesn't make the Commander products. He doesn't make Magic cards. He's not even allowed on the floor. R&D is on. This is an issue that asks the question of, are players allowed to control any aspect of this game? Are players who able to create a fun, engaging format and stand up to the corporation that creates these cards and say, you know what? We actually know how to do this in the way that we like, in the manner that they like. The reason I brought up Mark Rosewater as an example is that he expressed that he didn't even understand what people saw in the format. And that says to me that the greatest minds at Wizards really shouldn't be wresting control from the very people who have made Commander what it is today.
Mark Rosewater is not the only guy at Wizards, and you're slandering their good name. Glenn Jones, who is in R&D, was involved in
I did not slander
Commander
Mr. Jones's name. I don't even
which is
know
great,
who
by
he
the way.
is.
I've played Commander with Glenn. I've played Commander with many people from Wizards.
Great. I'm so glad you've got your insider connections there. Maybe they're offering you a job or something. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Sheldon and Toby and the other people who have grown.
I think they're great too. I just think bring them inside Wizards so that they have to
Wizards is
listen
going
to the
offer
consumer
them
sometimes.
a job.
Right now, if Sheldon and Toby make a decision that cuts the player base in half, no skin off their nose. I mean, besides a little bit of pride.
That means that the decisions and the choices that they make have the game and its best interests first and foremost, not
maybe.
the profit
We don't know. It
line.
might just have their interest and their bias at heart.
How long have they been doing it? How long has Commander been
How long has Wizards been doing it? How long have they been the biggest card game in the world?
How long have they been making, let's see, how long has Wizards been making cards for Commander? Every year they've screwed something up.
You think Wizards
Aurora,
is this great big evil entity, and yet you've devoted your entire career to making videos for their game because you love it that much. They're doing something right.
There are so many fallacies in what you just said. I could not begin to list them all. Must be doing something right. Okay. Well, we'll see what people think in terms of whose argument had more merit. If you look in the description of this video, you will see a link to vote on each of the issues that we debated here today, and let us know who you think won each debate. Remember, it's not what you personally believe on the issue, but whose argument was more successful between the two of us. Vote today and find out in the next episode who won this episode, and let us know what topics you want us to debate next. We draw all of our topics from ones suggested in the comments of these episodes. We will be drawing the topics for episode 3 from the comments below. Let us know what you would like to hear in response.
And if you want to hear more from me about the Commander format, you can check out the Command Zone podcast, which I co-host with Jimmy Wong. We've also started doing some gameplay videos that you might enjoy. You can find me on Twitter at Josh Lee Kwai.
And of course, I am here where you're already at Tolarian Community College, but please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, it helps the channel out a lot. And if you have, do me a favor and check that you're still subscribed, because there's a horrible bug going around unsubscribing people without their consent. So make sure you are subscribed to support content like this. And we'll see you next time.
It's a lot of fun, Prof. Thanks.
All right. And this video has been brought to you in part by a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers like you. So thank you.